have an intro?
No, not really.
Okay.
Just trying to think of something this morning, but
That's okay. We don't want to force it anyway. Welcome back to this week's episode of Wayward Sisters podcast. We don't have an intro. That's right.
the podcast where we talk about
Fingers and butts.
yeah.
Right. I'm Kat.
I'm Dom.
And this morning, well, we're recording this morning. If you're listening to it later than that, then oh my gosh,
that's between you and you.
We're good at this. We're going to be talking about self-awareness.
And this falls under our humanity subject.
Yes. Self-awareness. If more humans were. So, what is self-awareness? It is essentially the awareness of self. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wayward Sisters podcast.
Take it from the top.
No.
Okay. So we got to do our catch-up.
Our catch-up.
Are you working on anything new?
I am. One of the things that I have struggled with in my personal journey, because my focus and my passion is on spirituality and personal growth in the mental arena, is having a strong connection to my physical existence. Has always been, I've always felt very disconnected. I didn't realize that I was disconnected until a couple of years ago, when my health started declining, because I was taking care of like spirit and mind and soul, but not my body. And so that's always been the case. I did this guided meditation during this course one time, and like the most profound part of that meditation was when I was watching myself like be born. Like this was a whole big long like conception, gestation, birth, our whole life, and then death. Best case scenario death, worst case scenario death. It was I don't know. And like the most profound thing was not being eaten alive by sharks after being skinned and thrown in salt water. It was like watching my infant self be born. And I was like, holy shit, I exist. And that I didn't realize how disconnected I was from my body. And some of that did happen with the sexual trauma. I just kind of disconnected from my physical body because it felt like it had betrayed me in some ways, or it was damaged, therefore less useful, or something. I'm not sure. But this past year, one of the things that has been this circling theme for me is existing. I've had a call to action in the last year to I'm really supposed to connect to my physical existence, and part of my healing and health issues that I'm having currently are tied to that. Like I need to connect to this physical form, or I don't get to play the game anymore. Like I don't get to keep being spiritual and keep growing and uncovering secrets to the universe and stuff like that I love doing, if I don't take care of the physical body that allows me to be in this realm. I'm working on essentially researching ways to really connect. If there are like guided meditations or exercises or something that I can do to connect with my physical body. So what are you working on?
Well,
okay, so I just told the rest of that story to Dom. That's why my face looks like this now, because I was crying, but I edited it out.
Edited for
because it's none of your business. All right, what you got? My coffee is cold now.
Mine's cold too. I don't really have anything new internally that I'm working on yet. I'm sure something will come up as it does. Also come up like boners come up. I just did a little dance for those who are not watching the YouTube episode. Well, since Kat hasn't had an opportunity to follow up with the armpit licking thing, I talked to my partner about it. I happen to have some quality time with him. But it was a role reversal, because once again, I ended up being the licky. And I will say it was a vastly different experience from when I was a teenager, and it was super weird and awkward. And especially in the context of sexual intimacy, damn. I guess what I would be bringing attention to for myself and what I'm working on is, due to my lack of experience with a lot of those things, I intend to just, try anything twice and learn what I like and improve on that part
Yay!
of me. Yay!
Yay!
So my my hair's a mess. I haven't showered yet today. I still smell like boy, and dang.
It's gonna be a fun episode.
Feeling good.
Maybe we're recording the wrong thing for this episode. Sex one. We can just put them out of order. It's fine. Well, I mean, I guess learning that you like a finger in the butt is close to self-awareness.
Yeah.
That's a good intro.
I did learn that last night.
I can cut that out if you don't want that in there.
Oh, that's fine. Why not?
I don't know. It's your story to tell.
It's my butt.
It's your butt to share.
Yes. So I learned that I do like having my armpit licked in the context of sexual intimacy and having a finger in my butt. I did not suspect that about myself, but
here we are.
Jinx.
The last time that happened for me was at the doctor.
Oh,
and he didn't warn me.
rude.
He didn't warn me. Yeah. He's just like, I'm going to check. I'm like, that's the wrong. Oh, okay. Yep. Like, why would you not explain the procedure? Because he had a finger in each hole. I'm like, I mean, I can see why they call this the shocker, but I didn't expect that to happen here. So I think it was just such a routine thing for him because he was a specialist that, like, he's like, okay, I'm just going to check both holes. I'm like, no! He did use lube, so.
That's nice.
There's that. Yeah. Anyway.
Self-awareness.
How I would describe self-awareness is the communication between your soul and your mind, or your emotions and your logic. A lot of times when we see something out of, like, we just glance at something, or we're turning our heads and we catch sight of something, and our minds can't really decipher what we're seeing. And so we do a double take and we check back to focus on it and what the fuck was that? And so you look back at it until you give your brain time to catch up and piece together what it's looking at. So for me, self-awareness works kind of the same way, or at least when you're practicing developing it, which I do believe it's a cultivated thing. Like, you can, if you're not super self-aware, it's something that you can work on and build and get better at. So
absolutely.
When you have a reaction, when you have an emotional reaction, and we just kind of brush it off, things like gut reactions, losing our temper, being reduced to tears over something that's this little minor thing, they all deserve that internal double take. If we just kind of brush it aside, then we're not digging into why did that reaction happen. If we don't do that pause to let our minds and our hearts focus on what we're experiencing and where it's truly coming from, then we're not able to process things as completely, like traumas and hurts and desires even, and triggers. We're not able to do that as effectively, if at all.
Self-awareness is that moment you give yourself to check in and examine why. There's that saying or quote that's gone around where, your first thought is your conditioning, your second thought is how you've changed and evolved. So I think that ties in with that. It's that, you have this knee-jerk reaction to something and it's like, hold on, where did that come from? And the more you practice self-awareness and being mindful, the quicker you are able to, and the more efficiently you're able to figure those things out and continue on with your day.
Right.
But in the early days of development, I can personally attest, There's a lot of time spent on the self-analysis.
How do you do that for yourself? Like what were the ways that you did that? The self-analysis to build your self-awareness.
Well, I'd like to believe that I have been more self-aware than the average person most of my life, but I'm a Virgo. I'm always looking for ways to improve. And it was brought to my attention a number of years ago by somebody who loves me very much.
What?
That I was not as self-aware as I thought, as I believed. And so, and sometimes that's what it takes. It takes somebody loving you enough to call you on shit. And, you know, being, I think I mentioned before, my aloneness, being so much on my own for so much of my life, I wasn't privileged to have people around me who would call me on that stuff. I only had myself. So you get used to yourself and you do things the way you've always done them, and nobody's ever checked you along the way. So you just think, okay, well, you know, seems
must
to be
doing
fine.
all right, because it's
Must
not
be right.
I read this article once about this guy who lived in the wilderness completely alone, no human contact, for like 8 years. And you lose your identity. Like, or you don't lose it, but much of our identity comes from how we interact with society and people and stuff like that. And so you might have been super self-aware in your bubble, like I am super aware of myself and this is how I am in relation to yourself, but like how you respond to people and situations and friendships.
And we'll have to probably devote an entire episode to identity, because I know that's been a personal struggle for me.
And that's the thing too, like kind of going off on a different trail a little bit, but if your lover or your friend came to you and they were like this emotional wreck, would you brush them off and like shove them under a rug and just, you know, get over it, you're being a baby? Some people do that. But, or would you try
narcissists?
We're on to you. Not you. Narcissist. Or would you listen to them as they vented and they cried and raged or hulked out or whatever? Like, would you listen to them and try to comfort them and help them piece themselves back together when they were ready to? Like, you give those courtesies and that love to people outside of yourselves easily. And it's like, oh yeah, of course, like I see that you're hurt. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like, whatever. And you're comforting. But when it comes to ourselves and we have those responses, those emotional responses, we're, you know, keep a stiff upper lip, get over it, move on.
Cry on the inside like a winner.
Yes. That should also be a t-shirt.
Yeah. We don't give ourselves the same courtesy and the same love and attention that we would give to a significant other or a child. Or
yeah, I feel like some of that too is and this is another side tangent, but there's so much of that minimizing our personal traumas. Like we're like, well, yeah, but somebody definitely has it worse. Like I've experienced some shitty stuff, but somebody definitely has experienced shittier. It doesn't mean that I'm less traumatized. It doesn't mean that I'm more connected to my physical being. That's still an issue. Like, it's still causing hurt and it's still causing issues in you because you've experienced those things. Just because someone in Africa is starving doesn't mean you suddenly like rye bread. Like, I don't know why that's the example, but and that's such a petty example of first world problems, but it doesn't hide the traumas, and we just squish them down instead of dealing with them. So obviously there's like less extreme examples to start working on your self-awareness with, but it does begin with the recognition and respect for our own emotional responses. Oh, actually, there's another thing about self-awareness. Like, as at least as Americans, I can't speak for how other cultures handle their shit because I'm here, but we're conditioned to squash our self-awareness from a very early age. We're taught from like a very tender age to discount our own feelings in one way or another, to stop crying when we're overwhelmed, to be nice when we don't feel nice, to behave when we're restless or whatever. There's all of these things where we're told to, and we talked about it the last episode too, like little girls when they don't want to hug that creepy person, but you're like, no, you'll make them feel bad. And so you're teaching them to squash their intuition and to disconnect from themselves personally, and like the whole peeing my pants story.
Yeah.
We don't need
And
to revisit that, but
it's essentially because of that conditioning, it's causing your innate self-awareness to die an early death and be damaged, and just like your intuition. And so these are things that we're born with and we should nurture and have the entire time, and they just.
And then as adults, when we're expected to be self-aware so that we can handle ourselves properly in social situations or be in tune with ourselves for personal growth, we have this atrophied, this sickly, shriveled self-awareness that's been squashed by conditioning and domestication, essentially,
right,
from a young age. And women, especially, like women are gender-wise, even women are taught not to be angry because it's not nice. Don't be angry because then you're
not attractive.
Right, it's not attractive. You're going to be a bitch. Like, oh, you're just a bitch. Like, no, I'm just angry. It's a normal human emotion that I am allowed to have. And so we're not allowed to be angry. We have to be ladylike. Like, and that might be just speaking from my upbringing. Ladylike was a term thrown around a lot. Like, well, that's not ladylike. I'm like, I don't want to be a lady.
But again,
even
we're bringing this podcast to you speaking from our own experiences and things that we've learned along the way. So
yeah,
these are our credentials.
The trauma for men on the same spectrum, they are not allowed to show weakness, or like they're not allowed to cry or be sad or emotional because it's weak. Do you know how much better off the entire world would be if it was a normal thing for men to feel their emotions or to be self-aware or to, oh my God.
We could talk about that for hours.
Probably will, but we only have one. And having self-awareness doesn't necessarily mean that you're walking around expressing every feeling that wells up, or like sitting there and keep holding camp like, I feel upset because of this. I read this meme the other day. Your triggers are not the rest of the world's responsibility. Mm-hmm. And so there is a reality to triggers, and the word gets thrown around a lot. Like a lot. It's just kind of, it's negating the truth of the word, because people that have experienced true trauma have triggers. Like, I like to pretend that I'm all fixed up and I'm fine, but I actually do have triggers that I'm like, oh,
I do too.
Holy shit, let's not ever say that, actually.
Yeah.
And so it's a legitimate thing. People are definitely throwing it around so much where it's getting watered down and like, oh, that's my trigger. And when they're just being offended or they're just losing an argument or something. And so that's not fair, but it's our responsibility. Like, that stuff happened to us. It wasn't our fault, but it's our responsibility to heal ourselves. Nobody else is going to do that for us. And so having self-awareness so that you can find the tendrils of that trauma, or you could find the tendrils of where that emotion is coming from, to fix yourself.
I was just going to add, I don't know if I would consider it a meme, but I did see a post recently attributing to personal growth, and it said something to the effect of, demonstrating your growth is remembering who you are while triggered. So it's keeping your sense of self and identity even if you are spiraling. And so it ties into what you were saying about reading that post. The rest of the world, that's not the rest of the world's responsibility. So self-awareness is actually also taking responsibility for yourself.
For sure. And you have to be honest with yourself. And that's another part of it. But like the triggering and not being, of course we want a society that is compassionate. Of course we want people that aren't purposefully pushing buttons to trigger people or to be shitty. That's a legitimate thing too. That needs work, guys. But as far as you can't just go around like, well, you triggered me. Like, I understand that. I understand that trauma is a legitimate thing. Like, I have my own. Yeah. So again, it's not succumbing to every emotion that we have. It's not sitting there like, oh, I feel super sad because whatever. You can feel sad, but it is that being honest with yourself. Like, where is this coming from? Important step to take instead of just like setting up camp in being angry or road rage or something. Like, you don't want to stay there, but it's recognizing that an emotion came up, and then deciphering what flavor that emotion is. Like, is it jealousy, anger, guilt, happiness, hope? Did it bring up a situation or a memory that you forgot about? Like, so it doesn't mean that like I just feel everything to a super, super deep level. That's not what self-awareness is. It's like, oh, holy shit, when they said that, I like felt super jealous. That seems weird. They're my friend and I'm happy that they're having this success in their life, but then there's this dark, slimy response happened. Why? Instead of just like, oh, good for you. And you're sitting in that jealousy when your friend is having a good day, or they got promoted at work or whatever. Like, are you really angry at them for their life being better or not better? Are you angry at them for getting promoted? Or are you really angry with yourself because you feel like you should be farther along in your life, or you feel like you should have gotten the promotion when they were clearly better suited to it? Like, being honest with yourself. This is what I'm getting to. Like, being honest with yourself once you do those connecting the dots, or you follow the you follow the tracks to find what's going on internally. Being honest about it is where growth happens. You can lie to yourself all day long. You're like, well, she just didn't deserve the promotion. I did. And so I'm not friends with her anymore. Like, you can ruin relationships by by lying to yourself, and you will stay stuck wherever you are if you cannot honestly own up to the shit that you're finding. There's self-awareness will do you no good at all if you can't be honest with yourself, because then you're not actually fixing anything. So if I'm saying I'm jealous of her, or I'm mad because she got the promotion and it should have been me, if we're honest, companies don't generally do that. Sometimes they do. Sometimes there's some weird whatever politics involved, but she was likely better suited to the promotion than you were. And so you can just be pissed. You can just be pissed and get nowhere, or you can be like, okay, so why was she better suited than me? What can I do to prepare myself to be the best candidate for the next one? And that's where your personal growth happens. But if you're just like, you're not a failure because you succumb to road rage, and so now, or you are jealous and you feel that spark of jealousy, like, honor them and let them speak, but then like really dig into where that is actually coming from. Small stuff can happen, and if we have these weird triggers, they can elicit responses that are just not equal to the scenario. So like, if I left milk on the counter and my spouse was like, hey, you left the milk out, and I could totally fly off the handle. It has nothing to do with leaving the milk on the counter and forgetting. I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, and then it's done. But if I had like my whole childhood, nothing I did was good enough. Everything I did was wrong. Everything was nitpicked, and like, you did this. Oh, you did that. And like, I see you cleaned your room, but you forgot this corner over here, or you should do it this. Like, there's a lot of things that can cause weird reactions that just don't fit the scenario. And people just like, well, you just stop fucking nagging me. Like, he's not nagging you. You left the milk out. It spoils and goes bad and is wasteful, and it goes in the fridge. So there's these things where we can absolutely lose sight of ourselves because of squashing down where those reactions are coming from. Like, if I have a fight with my significant other, or I don't have fights actually. They feel like fights sometimes, but they're really just like, okay, let's do this. But it's like with my ex-husband, if something was wrong, because we were very mild, it was a very mild marriage. If there was an issue, I would in all of the ways, if there was an issue, I would sit with it for about 3 days is my kind. I don't know why that's my number, but if something's big and it's a big deal, I sit with it for 3 days. And why I do that is so that I'm not like, you did this and it's wrong and you're stupid and you suck. It is okay. This is the reaction that I'm experiencing. Like, this is how I feel. It feels shitty. It feels bad. I feel like it's your fault. And in my mind, this is a conversation I'm having with myself. Like, I feel like it's his fault and he's doing this to me and it's making me feel this way. So let's take some time. Let's take some time and sit with it. Like, how much of that is actually him? Like, is he an asshole? No, he was really not an asshole. He was a really nice guy. So whatever he was doing he was probably not aware of it. But also the reality of it is how much of what he did is triggering something else in me from my past, some insecurity that I have on my own. It has nothing to do with him. It's just poking at something that I haven't healed yet. And so instead of coming to him and freaking out and yelling and like, you did this and you're so inconsiderate and you don't love me and all of this other bullshit that's not true, and I'm just a wounded animal, like backed in a corner and lashing out, sitting with that and digging into like being responsible for my emotions. Like, where is this coming from? Is this him or is it me? And that has saved so much. I know it's funny to say because he's my ex-husband now, but it had nothing to do with that. Like, we communicated really well. That had nothing to do with the breakdown. But
so at this point in my journey, when it comes to things that come up like that, I have a quick little conversation that I have with myself. Somebody says something and I'm the fuck, like I'm mad or upset or hurt or something. And then I'm like, and if it feels like a really intense reaction, I'm like, okay, wait. So first question is acknowledging the feeling. Like, I feel crushed. Okay. So because they said something, and then I just got really upset and started crying. Okay. Like, how well do I know this person? Say it's somebody I've known for 12 years. Do they love me? Yes, absolutely. Would they ever, and then I asked, this is a conversation I'm having with myself.
No, that's self-awareness.
Yeah. So the next question I ask is, would they ever intentionally do anything to hurt me? The answer should be no. Otherwise, maybe you shouldn't be friends with them. And obviously the answer would be no. I'd be like, okay, so it is their fault. And we'll get in, we have a whole other episode we're going to get into fault versus responsibility, because that was like, whoa. But it was their fault that caused that reaction in me. However, I have quickly identified that knowing them, knowing that they care about me, it was not intentional on their part. I need to figure out why it caused such a big upset. It's my responsibility to figure that out. And then if it's a big enough issue, then it may warrant having a conversation with that person about it. Oftentimes it's all on my end and there doesn't need to be a conversation about it. I have found. And it's all me.
A lot of times it is. I mean, not all you, but like a lot of times it is just something that I can regulate on my own, because it is just weird shit coming up from my past or whatever. It's poking at things. And yes, self-awareness makes you a better human for the collective. It's going to make your relationships better. It's going to make the world better. Like, there's definitely a community benefit to you being self-aware, but it's really for your own fucking good. Like, that person is going to go about their day, have no fucking idea that whatever they said to them was nothing, or it's just a light comment, that it poked some hell beast in you and woke it up, and your whole day or week is destroyed because of something that someone else said. So it's the same thing with forgiveness. Like, forgiveness is more for you than for them. Like, so is self-awareness. Like, you're going to benefit the rest of the world by being self-aware. Mm-hmm. But it's really for your own good and your own mental health to dig into these things and figure it out. Because then if you're not self-aware, then you just keep repeating patterns. If you don't fix it, you're stuck in a rut forever. If you can't take responsibility for where you're at, and there's people that are just perpetually negative. Like, well, everything is wrong. I tried that, but it just doesn't work for me. I'm like, well, okay, but why? Like, there's not some rain cloud assigned to you. Like, you pick it out and you put it over your head yourself.
And you choose not to pick up an umbrella and move out of it.
Or like takes 3 steps to the left and it's sunny. There's a lot of people like that. And it's sad, and you can't help them. I've tried. I've like, well, just like keep a chin up. They're like, nope, my chin is dislocated from birth and just hangs on my like, they have all of these reasons why they can't be happy. Like, then that is your choice, but
and
make it powerfully.
I know a lot of these same people, and we hope that if you're out there, that this message reaches you and is able to help you turn things around for yourself. It's my hope that whoever needs to hear this message about self-awareness and taking responsibility for yourself, I really hope that you feel empowered to do so. I really do.
Because it's good shit. It'll change your life in a really positive way. And as we get into further episodes talking about manifesting and creating the life that you want, being self-aware is a huge, huge, huge part of that. A huge part of that. Because shit is blocking the stuff that you want. If you want to be happy, if you want, family or community or whatever, like whatever you want out of life, if you don't have it, I'm sorry, and this is a hard pill for so many people to swallow, you are blocking it. Nobody else is.
You are in your own way.
Yes. And we can talk about how to get out of your way. We can talk about why I said that, but it is the truth of the matter. There is something, and it's obviously not conscious, because you're like, no, I want this and it should just happen. Like, there is a subconscious, meaning that you're not consciously aware. There is a subconscious belief blocking what you want in life from getting to you. And so as we develop our self-awareness and we can remove the layers of bullshit that have been put on us from childhood, from domestication, from our parents doing their best but really falling short, like from all of these things and traumatic experiences, if we can work on removing those layers and get down into the subconscious and where, like, oh, holy shit. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example that's not calling anybody out. Money's a good one. Like, I grew up in poverty. I have a lot of subconscious beliefs that I'm still digging through to find out why I'm blocking money from just flowing into my life. Because that should be the reality. There is plenty of money in the world. There's no reason some of it shouldn't be mine. There's just not. And again, we'll get into manifesting later in a later episode. But I've had to work through beliefs of I deserve to have money. There's beliefs surrounding how we view money in entertainment. Like, money's the root of all evil. Well, that's religion, actually, which can be considered entertainment depending on what church you go to. Like, oh, that's what you believe. That's funny. That's actually probably not very nice, but that's a legitimate experience. I can share that. But that if you have a lot of money, it corrupts you and turns you into this supervillain. And so I want to be a good person. I want to be a light in the world. And so there has been a part of me that's been pushing money back because I should be pious. I should be like a monk and not need anything. Well, bitch, I don't have anything. So you did it. Good job. But I'm done with that. Like,
it's understanding that having wealth or enough money to live a good life, whatever your definition of that is not mutually exclusive with being a good or bad person.
Right. And so there's all of these little sneaky things buried in us that you need self-awareness to create the life that you want. Because again, this is a hard pillow for a hard pillow.
Well, that was last night.
This is a hard pillow to bite. Hold on.
That's my butt cheek.
It is firm. I lost my train of thought.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A lot, like, I've nearly lost friends because of this pill. Whatever is in your life, you brought in. And please keep in mind that I am coming from a background of abuse and neglect. Like, those things. Like, obviously, like, oh, I'm just jealous because this one time in grade school, blah, blah, blah. Like, lighter stuff is easy to process and get over.
Yeah.
It's the shit. It's the shit that you have to get into to realize what is happening. Like, what vibration am I putting out there? What beliefs am I holding that allowed this? Not that attracted it or brought it into my life. That's a hard way to word it. That people are like, fuck you, I didn't bring, like, you did, honey. But if you look at it as, what am I doing? Like, what am I holding? What am I carrying? Where am I vibrating that allowed this into my life? And if you don't uncover that, again, through working with self-awareness, if you don't figure that shit out, it's going to keep coming. It's going to keep, like, it's like a magnet. Whatever you're vibrating, it's going to find you.
Yep.
Which is kind of scary sounding, but
yeah,
if you don't handle that shit, it's just going to keep repeating. And so if you feel like you're stuck in a rut where, look, I can do this, and it makes it look like I'm looking at people. Done a long time ago.
Am I looking at people?
You are.
Yay.
What are you looking at? Just your camera?
Mm-hmm.
I can never remember to do that because I'm like, faces are moving. It's mine.
There's a blue light that I can look at if I pay attention.
But so if you feel like you're in this rut, or like, this always happens to me, you're doing it. You are doing it. And please hear this in love. It's not, I'm not blaming you, but if you can get past the offense of being responsible for your life, because that's super offensive to people, especially when they've had a shitty life. If you can get past that, and I hope beyond hope that you can, because that's when healing and power begins. If you can do that, and you can dig into where those things are coming from, then you can stop those patterns, and you can stop that cyclical nature of whatever shit keeps coming into your life. And it's hard to deny. If you're like, I don't know why this keeps happening to me. I do. Sorry, this is a very passionate topic.
Yes. I mean, yeah, for both of us. And to reiterate something you said earlier, nearly losing friends. I mean, hi.
Oh yeah, hi.
If I had not listened to when I got called out all those years ago, we would not be sitting with you guys here today.
It would be a lonely podcast.
Be a very lonely.
Because I probably would still do it. I would just be alone. Nobody likes you because you're an asshole. That's fine.
But also, yes, if you can get past the offense of hearing, hey, all of it is you. Well, people get angry when they're confronted with the truth. 99.9% of the time. Especially because you don't want to be called on your own bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're perfect.
Because it seems to be the inclination of many to seek outside causes and reasons to place blame. Nobody really wants to believe that saying as if it were me, I did this to myself. But as soon as you are ready to acknowledge that, the weight that lifts off you, I mean, it's a heavy weight. But you will feel relief and peace if you speak those words aloud. And to your point earlier, saying, why does this always happen to me, or this always happens to me? Words have power, y'all. And by saying stuff like that only works to reinforce those subconscious hidden beliefs that are blocking your way.
Yeah. Yeah, words have so much power. We will have an episode on that as
yeah.
well. This is another tangent, but the the not wanting to be responsible for yourself, that desire to not be responsible for your own shit, I think is what is driving toxic Christianity or toxic religion.
Yeah.
Like, well, if it's in God's will, well, it just must be in God's will to do this. And like, well, if God wants the children in Haiti to starve to death, and that's just, there must be a reason. Like, no, it's because the world is out of fucking whack and you need to send them some rice. Like, we are so addicted to not taking responsibility for our shit.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the state of the world. Nobody's taking responsibility for anything, and now look at it. It's terrible. But one of the things that I didn't agree with Christianity is that we have no power. Like, well, it's just God's will that I have cancer and die. Well, okay, have fun doing that, because you're gonna die.
That belief is reinforced that you're not in control, but we're going to get into probably a whole episode on this of how you are a co-creator with whatever higher power or whatever you believe. You're co-creating in conjunction with that. I usually use the term universe, and so a lot of times I will say if I'm feeling stuck, I'll say I trust and believe in the universe that has my back. But me putting my trust and faith, that's not me giving up and saying, oh well, I guess blah blah blah. No, I'm actively willing in a desire for the best possible outcome for me and whomever is connected with me to co-create that scenario.
Yeah. And so when we just like let go of the reins of our life, and people don't want to take responsibility, and it's not just God that they blame, like, well, the government,
Mm-hmm.
well, this law, well, this happened, or well, my boss said this. And so like,
But that's just the way it's always been.
right.
Most
And then
hated sentence to me. One of them.
and has it worked, and has it been good the way that it's always been? So taking responsibility for ourselves is a huge thing. I love it. It's I've never had a terrible experience with that. Taking responsibility for myself, it's always led to growth and to a deepening of relationship with whoever I'm being responsible towards. Or like I fucked up here. It's always strengthened that relationship by like, oh, you like owned your shit. People don't generally do that. They just pretend like it didn't happen or blame somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm some unicorn of a person, but like just showing or trying to highlight the reality of being responsible for yourself, which again starts with self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
okay,
we're gonna wrap up.
Yeah.
Do it.
Thank you all so much for tuning in this week. Self-awareness is a huge part of it's something we're very passionate about and has been a huge part of our growth, and taking personal responsibility for ourselves has really solidified our bond with each other and has made such a huge difference in why we are us.
And our personal growth.
It
is the key.
One of them. One of the keys to the kingdom. Anyway, so next week we will be talking about our first magical topic, and that will be gratitude as it pertains to manifesting. And completely intentional, that episode will be airing on Thanksgiving. Again, we really want to get the Q&A portion going. Use any means to reach out to us. DM us on Instagram. We're Wayward Sisters, no periods or punctuation, waywardsisters@gmail.com. I am working on the website, so eventually you will be able to reach out to us on our website, waywardsisters.com, or send us a message on our Facebook page, which is Wayward Sisters, FKA Roxanne Zendia, which is our retired former identity. We love you so much and are so grateful that for your past support, present support, and future.
Wow.
Mwah.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.